sandal maker and his wife lived in a little wooden house on a sunny street in Asakusa, Japan. For 50 years, husband and wife prayed at the great temple nearby. After they prayed, they chose a paper fortune. Before tying it to a tree, alongside the other paper fortunes fluttering in the breeze, they studied it a while. Was it a good fortune or a bad one? Sometimes it was hard to tell. One week their fortune announced, "You will find a way." "Yes, I suppose we will," said the sandal maker. The next week their fortune advised, "Seek the sun each day." "That will be easy," said his wife. "It's springtime, and in the spring the sun always shines." But that spring, in the year 1966, a builder came to measure the empty lot across the street. He was followed by 3 machines and a truckload of men. The men and machines dug a square hole in the ground and drove pilings deep down into the earth. They built walls high up into the sky, 154 feet high. The new building towered above all the other buildings on the block. Now, the sandal maker's small 2-story house stood in the shade of a 9-story building. When the sandal maker and his wife rolled up the bed quilts in the morning, even on a sunny morning, it was still dark and cold in their house. Next door, on the left, the tatami maker's house stood in the shade of the same tall building. The tofu maker's house on the right stood in shade too. The building cast such a long shadow, it kept the sun from shining on all the houses in one whole corner of Asakusa.
So as you guys can see here, this big tall building here is casting the shadow over everyone's house, and no one has any sun. So they have no energy. Sounds awful.
The sandal maker tended to his plants as lovingly as he always had, but his holly tree grew weak in the shade. His tiny bonsai trees stopped bearing fruit. The breezes that once blew gently in Asakusa now whipped around the tall building. The breezes turned into gusts of wind that lifted the sandal maker's wife's skirts when she went outside. The wind tore up her umbrella when it rained. The wind grew so fierce, it spun the dust and dirt into swirling tornadoes, and it even uprooted the sandal maker's precious plants. "You would think a dragon had moved into the neighborhood," he cried. "How can we wrestle with a dragon? How can we seek the sun each day here in the shadow of a tall building?" "We will find a way," said his wife. "Our fortune said so. We will find a way to seek the sun, and our neighbors will help us. We will go to the courthouse and talk to the judge." "Our house is cold all the time," the sandal maker's wife told the judge. "The clothes don't dry. The bed..."
Okay. So here's the sandal maker's wife, and here's it's showing how windy it is and rainy and what happens to our umbrella when she goes outside, because that building is blocking all the sun and it's making it windy in their neighborhood. So now she's going to the judge. Let's see what he says.
"Quilts smell musty. The tatami mats are gathering mold. My sandal shop is dark," said the sandal maker. "I cannot see well enough to work. The straw for my mats cannot dry and stretch," said the tatami maker. "The wind blowing around the tall building blows my cart away," said the tofu maker. After the judge listened to the townspeople, he listened to the owner of the building. "We do not have enough land, yet we need more space for offices," explained the builder. "We have no place to build on the ground, so we must build up into the sky." "Yes, that is true," said